What's up, everybody? Joe Carlton here. Welcome to Aces Up Podcast, episode 24. Got a little daytime episode for you as I was unavailable to do the show last night. I'm going to be flying solo today. We're going to discuss Week 12 waivers and like 10 or 11, 12 players that I think have positive outlooks going forward for down the stretch, rest of the season. As we know, from here on out, every lineup decision, every free agent move we make, everything is magnified. Decisions become more important as we're 3 weeks from the fantasy playoffs. So the next 3 weeks could define our season, especially if we're right there on the cusp of contention. So I'm going to do the best to give you the best advice that I can give you for the next few weeks. So hope you enjoy the show. All right, we got Albert in the chat already. What's up, Albert? Good to see you, man. We're going to jump right into it. We're going to start with waivers, Week 12 waivers. Again, I'm going to target leagues with deeper benches, generally high-stakes leagues. But if you play in deeper leagues, 14-team leagues, more than 5 bench spots, 10 bench spots, 20 rosters. These are the waiver wire targets I'm presenting to you. I'm going to start right away with Emmanuel Wilson. We know Josh Jacobs got injured. Supposedly good news, there's no structural damage, but he has been labeled week to week. So for the time being, we know Emmanuel Wilson stepped in last week. He had 11 carries for 40 yards and a touchdown. He does have, 2 upcoming kind of tough matchups against the run. Week 12, this upcoming week, he's at home against Minnesota, and then week 13 at Detroit, who generally is pretty good against the run. So obviously temper expectations. Don't expect, Josh Jacobs type of output, but, week 12, there's teams on bye. There's Denver, the Chargers, Miami, Washington's on a bye, so you could be without Vidal, without Devon A-Chain, no Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, no RJ Harvey. Maybe you need a running back to plug in for a week or two. I think Emmanuel Wilson can give you a decent floor. Like I said, I wouldn't expect Josh Jacobs numbers, but, somewhere between 7 and 13 points just to get you through the week, is serviceable. Next up, I like Cedric Tillman. So now, we just got breaking news that Shedeur Sanders is going to be the starter in week 12. He came in after he was thrust in. This is going to be the first week he actually gets game preparation. So I'm going to be positive about it. Cedric Tillman led the team in receiving yards last week. I believe he had 52 receiving yards on 3 catches. It's off the top of my head. I don't have the actual numbers in front of me, but when Cedric Tillman is active, this is a guy that produces. Jerry Jeudy's had pretty much a down season, and he had one good week a couple weeks ago, but as far as the pass catches here, it's the tight ends, and then I like Cedric Tillman out of the wide receiver group. I actually drafted him, during draft season, I was drafting him. Obviously, I let him go on a lot of teams because you need the bench space, and he missed quite a bit of chunk of the season. But as a speculative ad, for some receiver depth, I don't mind Cedric Tillman. Jumping over to the next player I have on my list, Ollie Gordon. He has been hovering around a 20 to 30% snap share. The last week, we saw him get increased work in the second half. His snap share went up to 40%. He did have 9 carries, so 45 yards, so that's averaging 5 yards per carry. He scored a touchdown versus Washington. We know it's Washington defense; they kind of stink. But the what I like about Gordon is Miami's strength of the schedule the rest of the season. They have probably the top as far as facing defenses that give up fantasy points. Miami has the number one schedule going forward from now till the end of the year. So that gives him huge upside if A-Chain were to miss time. So obviously worth a stash. I wouldn't go starting him, but definitely worth a stash going forward. Moving on to another running back, we have Kenny Gainwell. Jaylen Warren got injured last week. He did come back in the game, but eventually Tomlin shut him down and played Kenny Gainwell. So I think that Kenny Gainwell has probably done enough at this point that he's earned a little bit more of a role going forward. I don't think they're going to lean on Jaylen Warren as much as they have in the past few weeks. We know that when Jaylen Warren misses time, Kenny Gainwell has huge upside. Back in week 4 against Minnesota, he put up 31.4 fantasy points. And just this past week against the terrible Cincinnati defense, after coming in for the injured Warren, he put up 29.5 fantasy points. He's a two-way running back. He can catch passes. He can play a third down role. He can run between the tackles, not effectively as Jaylen Warren, but still pretty good. We know he can handle all 3 downs in the event Jaylen Warren would have missed time. So Kenny Gainwell, if he is available still in your league, somebody dropped him because they needed space, go out and scoop him up. Next on my list, this was one of my big waiver wire pickups last week. If he's still available in your league, I like Jaden Higgins going forward. I think he's emerged as the Houston number 2 wide receiver. He's got, in the last 4 weeks, he's got 23 targets, 14 receptions, and 2 touchdowns. His rest of the season schedule, you got Buffalo, Indy, Kansas City, Arizona, Vegas, and the Chargers. Again, I think he's a rookie wide receiver. We know that they take time to develop, and a lot of them usually start to emerge and break out in the second half of the season and down the stretch. He's shown, he's getting the volume and the target share to be considered the number 2 wide receiver in Houston. So Jaden Higgins, if he's available, definitely go get him. Next on my list, I like Luther Burden from Chicago Bears. Now, he hasn't given us the production that I'm confident in putting him in a lineup, but I like him as a stash. Over the last 2 weeks, he's seen a snap share increase up to 45%, 8 targets, 6 receptions. I think he's slowly overtaken Olamide Zaccheaus. I think they're starting to phase him out of the offense. We know that Colston Loveland has been more involved. DJ Moore, we don't know what to make of him. Every time he starts to flash, something happens. He gets hurt or he's not happy about something. Roma Dunze has been somewhat inconsistent. He does have some down weeks. So Luther Burden, again, I'm going to use the rookie wide receiver narrative where second half of the season they start to get increased volume, increased looks from the quarterback. So again, just a stash. We're not starting Luther Burden, but if you have room at the bottom of your bench, I like him as a stash. And got one more position player anyway, that I want to mention. I think you can stream him this week 12, and that's Andre Yoshivas. We know Jamar Chase spit on Jalen Ramsey and got himself suspended for a week. It aggravates me because I have one team where I need Jamar Chase desperately this week because I have Garrett Wilson and Terry McLaurin, and neither one of them are available to me. And Deebo Samuel on a bye week. And so now I'm looking at starting Kyle Williams. And so I might be putting in for Yoshivas in that particular league. We know T. Higgins is going to be dealing with Christian Gonzalez. They are playing my New England Patriots. I still say that Higgins is the type of wide receiver that Gonzalez might struggle with. The bigger bodied, man-to-man, one-on-one, 50-50 type wide receivers give Gonzalez some problems sometimes, as we've seen Drake London kind of dominate him a couple of weeks back. I'm still sure that the Patriots are going to do whatever they can to shut down T. Higgins, as he is probably their number one option now, offensive option outside of Chase Brown. So with that being said, I do think New England puts up a bunch of points. The Bengals defense can't stop anybody. So they're going to be playing from behind. Yoshivas is probably going to get a lot of garbage points, but garbage points count. So, I do think that he can reach at least 10 points this week. So if you need a wide receiver to plug in just for week 12, I would go out and spend a little fab on him. You probably don't have to spend a lot. You're using them just as a 1 week rental. But yeah, I like Yoshivas for week 12. And now I want to talk about two team defenses that we can use for this week and the rest of the season, perhaps. One of them I like is the Jacksonville Jaguars. If they're available, you need to go get them. They play Arizona this week, and then in week 13 they have Tennessee, and week 15 they have the New York Jets. Now week 14 they have Indy, and week 16 they have Denver. So those matchups aren't great, but for the week 13 and the week 15 matchups, I really like it. I like their upside. They're actually a top 10 fantasy defense, so they may not be available, but they could be available. Defenses is one of those positions where you can find the top 10 defense on the free agent list for whatever reason. Guys don't want to carry more than one defense. They need the bench space. So just, they have 7 games with 8 or more fantasy points, standard defensive fantasy points. So, they have a good floor and, good matchups. They're going to probably hit that floor. So week 13 and week 15, Jaguars defense, definitely serviceable. And an honorable mention, it's gross. And it's an honorable mention for my buddy, Joey Brown, because he brought it to my attention. New Orleans Saints defense. The playoff schedule, week 15, week 16, week 17. They have Carolina at home, the New York Jets at home, and then at Tennessee in week 17. Pretty juicy schedule. They do have 2 boom games. Back in week 5, they scored 21 fantasy points against the Giants. And then Carolina in week 10, they scored 14 points, and that's who their opponent is at week 15. So if you're really hurting for defense and you're making the playoffs, this is something you might want to consider. New Orleans Saints defense, can't believe I'm saying that, but they're actually not that bad. They're middle of the pack defensive wise. So with a 3-week run of good matchups, they probably will finish above their head as far as fantasy points goes. So not a bad honorable mention. We got Josh in the chat. Says, good stuff, Joe. Appreciate that, man. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate your support, as always, your friendship. We do our Monday night reaction show over on Steve D'Angelo's channel at Fantasy Savvy. You can check us out every Monday night at 7 p.m. It's me, Josh, Dan, and Joey Brown, the High Stakes crew. We go over what we saw. We digest everything that we saw on Thursday through Sunday, and we give a little Monday night preview with we each throw in a prop bet that we like, and you guys can parlay. You throw it, you make it a 4 or 5 leg parlay, or you can just take the picks you like. But we all give out one prop bet for the Monday night game that we like. So you can check that out, Fantasy Savvy channel on YouTube every Monday at 7 p.m. We're going to move on to players that I think have positive outlooks going forward, rest of the season, rises, if you will. First one I'm going to start with is a guy that's been on a tear the last couple of weeks, Jameson Williams, Detroit Lions. He's since Dan Campbell has taken over the play calling, he's definitely gotten him more involved. He wanted to be more aggressive downfield. You factor in the fact that Sam Laporta just hit IR. He's going to miss at least 4 games. Who knows if he misses more or not, but in the last 3 games he's had since Dan Campbell has taken over play calling, he's had 20 targets, 14 receptions, 273 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He's given us 16.6 points in week 9, 23.9 points in week 10, 19.7 points last week. Detroit's rest of the season schedule, defense is giving up fantasy points versus the quarterback, 6th most favorable schedule versus the wide receiver, 4th most favorable schedule. And here's the kicker. Versus the running backs, they're 22nd most favorable. So I think you could be looking at a lot of quarterback, a lot of passing going on in Detroit. They have some indoor games as well. They got New York Giants at home, Green Bay Packers at home, Dallas at home over the next 3 weeks. Then they go to LA to play the Rams in 15. Then they're back home against Pittsburgh in week 16. So we're looking at four of the last 5 games down the stretch at home. Again, week 17, they finish off against Minnesota at Minnesota. But just going by the strength of the schedule favors the quarterbacks and wide receivers. I'm loving Jameson Williams rest of the season. If you have him, great, plug him in. If you don't have him, a lot of leagues have the trade deadline this week 12. Do what you can to go out and buy him. I think he's a great person, a great player to target right now to get on your team if you don't have him. Moving on to the next player, another wide receiver, Jalen Waddle from Miami. On the year, he's been great all year. He's the cheapest he ever was in drafts this year, going anywhere between like round 6 and round 8. He's given us 49 receptions, 722 yards, and 5 touchdowns. He's averaging 7 targets, 5 catches, 91 yards per game, 14.9 PPR points per game since Tyreek Hill hit IR. Again, Miami, mentioned it earlier. They have a great schedule down the stretch. Number 1, actually, against fantasy points for all positions combined. They got rest of the season schedule. They have they are on bye week this week, but rest of the season schedule, they have the Saints at home week 13, the Jets at home week 14, Pittsburgh at home week 15. Actually, I don't even know if this is home or away. I usually write home or away on my notes, and none of them have an away symbol. So I'm starting to get speculative about my notes here. But nonetheless, their opponents are the Saints, Jets, Steelers, Bengals in week 16, and then Tampa Bay in week 17. That is fantasy friendly, written all over it. You got Saints, Jets, terrible defenses. Pittsburgh, awful against the pass and the run. I mean, they have their games where they do get pressure on the quarterback and it becomes a problem for the offenses, but generally their defense has been subpar this year. Cincinnati in week 16, Tampa Bay week 17. Great schedule. Jalen Waddle been a great consistent floor guy, giving us anywhere between 10 and 20 points every single week since Tyreek Hill went down. Love him rest of the season. Moving on to the next player, we have Trevion Henderson from my New England Patriots. In the 3 games without Ramondre Stevenson, he's been a beast. 47 carries, 264 yards, 4 rushing touchdowns. He also chipped in 13 catches for 66 yards and a touchdown. So 330 total yards, 5 touchdowns, 73 PPR points, averaging 24.3 points per game. Rest of the season schedule for the Patriots, we've talked about this in previous episodes. Definitely strength at Cincinnati week 12, week 13 at home against the Giants. Week 14, they're on a bye. Week 15 at home against Buffalo, who bleeds rushing yards all over the place. Week 16 against Baltimore, who they've been a little bit better against the run as of late, but they're definitely still have gaping holes in the interior line. So I like that matchup as well. And then week 17 at home against the New York Jets. Great schedule down the stretch. Ramondre Stevenson is slated to practice this week, but here's my thoughts on this situation. I don't think Ramondre comes back and takes over the number 1 role again. I don't think that they can just shut down Trevion Henderson after the way he's performed the past 3 weeks. He's shown that he can be a feature back. His pass protection has improved very much in the last couple of weeks. I think he just needed the reps. He needed the playing time. He needed the opportunity. He got all of that. And I do think it's going to be probably a split. I don't think it's just going to be all Trevion Henderson. But I'm not shying away from starting him from here on out. He's in the lineup as my RB2 or as my flex, no matter what, from here on out. No way I'm benching him. He's going to be part of the game plan every week, whether it's 10 to 15 touches or 15 to 20 touches. I don't know where it's going to be, but they're definitely not, there's not going to be those games where he only has 5 or 6 carries. It's not going to be all Ramondre Stevenson. There's just no way. So I'm in on Trevion rest of the year. Another Patriot I'm going to bring up that I'm in on rest of the season is Stephon Diggs. Now, if you listen to me during the off season and during draft season, I mentioned that I thought the Patriots offense would be really taken off by mid-season, like right around week 8, week 9. And that was all hindering on a healthy Stephon Diggs. And they did an excellent job managing his reps up until that point, and we are starting to see him break out. Since week 8, he's had 20 catches, 203 yards, and 3 touchdowns, giving us 10.4 fantasy points, 12.8 fantasy points, 15.6, and then 19.5. So he's increasing his production, his fantasy football production, every week since week 8. Just as how I thought that's exactly how I thought it was going to play out. He looks healthy. Anybody who thought he was washed, you're absolutely nuts. He looks healthy. He's playing with a great attitude. The offense is starting to really gel. The schedule is juicy down the stretch. Stephon Diggs is in your lineup every week, no matter what. He's as long as he's healthy. Moving on to the next player, running back, Alvin Kamara. Now, I know he's been disappointing all year. Definitely not worth where we drafted him, but I think he has a positive outlook rest of the season. Last week, the last game he played, they are coming off a bye week, but the last game they played Carolina, he had pretty good volume. He had 22 carries for 83 yards, 3 catches for 32 yards, gave us 14.5 PPR points. I think if he gives us 14.5 PPR points going forward each game, we'll be happy. And I think he can do that. He's coming off the bye week, so he's definitely going to be a little bit more fresh, a little bit more healthy. Rest of the season schedule for the Saints is real good. For the off, we talked about it for the defense. The defense is more so for the fantasy playoffs. But from week 12 to week 17, they have Atlanta at home, Miami in week 13 at Miami. Then they go to Tampa Bay week 14. Then 15, 16, and 17 all at home. Carolina, the Jets, and Tennessee. All great fantasy friendly matchups. All I don't think any of these teams, maybe with the exception of Tampa Bay, can completely blow them out. Atlanta's defense is kind of been shit in the bed the last couple of weeks. They at one point during the season a few weeks ago, I thought they were about to go on a huge run, and then they just started collapsing. They lost their quarterback. Drake London got hurt, so their offense isn't going to be as explosive anymore. I think it's going to be a competitive game, and it wouldn't surprise me if the Saints beat Atlanta this week. But you got to factor in Devin Neal. He's only had seven carries total since Kendre Miller missed time. Now, before that, we know Kendre Miller and Alvin Kamara were like a 50-50 split, or it was getting close to that anyways. That's definitely not the case with Devin Neal. He's clearly not where he needs to be to get on the field 50% of the snaps. So we know Alvin Kamara is going to get all the carries. This could be Alvin, the last few games we see Alvin Kamara. Maybe he channels some inner strength and gives us some vintage Alvin Kamara performances for going forward. I'll throw that narrative in there. And then it's a consolidated offense. We know that the top targets are Chris Olave, Juwan Johnson, and Alvin Kamara. Nobody else really does anything other than a play here and there, or they're getting maybe 4 or 5 targets, getting 2 or 3 catches per game. Devon Vele, Brandon Cooks, those guys, they're only getting 2 or 3 catches per game. Maybe 4 or 5 targets, like I said. So we can toss Chris Olave into this as well. His 28.9% target share is number 8 in the NFL at the position for the wide receiver. 95 targets, that's number 3 in the league. He's number 5 in first read targets with 69, number 5 in deep targets with 17. So, based on that volume alone, factor in the great down the stretch schedule. I love Alvin Kamara and Chris Olave going forward. And just want to shout out Player Profiler and PFF. These are the 2 platforms I get most of my numbers from, so I want to give them credit for that. So I don't just, bullshit come up with these numbers out of nowhere. I do my research, and most of the time I get it from those guys. So shout out those guys. Juwan Johnson. Yeah, all 3 Saints I like. Juwan Johnson's last 4 weeks, 17 receptions, 254 yards, 2 touchdowns. In that 4 weeks span, he gave us a 12.9, a 10.3, a 12.1, and a 19.2. All great floor numbers for a tight end. 13.6 points per game. If by some reason he's available in your league, go pick him up. He's probably startable at the tight end position going forward. Moving on, there's one running back I like, Quinshon Judkins. The last 3 weeks, his performances have been down. He hasn't reached 10 points and 10 fantasy points in the last 3 weeks. I think a lot of that has to do with quarterback play. The defense is being able to key in on him. But Again, Cleveland has a pretty good schedule down the stretch. I do think that he will bounce back. He's a solid RB2 going forward. Philadelphia as a whole, I like their outlook as a whole team. I like their outlook going forward rest of the season. As far as a fantasy schedule goes, against they get their quarterback. They have the 7th most favorable schedule, running back 4th most favorable schedule, wide receivers 2nd most favorable schedule. Now tight end 28th. So maybe we can temper expectations on Dallas Goedert, and I think we might see bounce back weeks upcoming for A.J. Brown. I think we can continue to see Devonta Smith produce. Week 12, they are at Dallas. We know Dallas's defense gives up points in bunches. Week 13, they're at home against Chicago, another good matchup. Week 14, they go to L.A. to play the Chargers. They have actually haven't been playing as great. I like their defense, but their defense hasn't been playing that great as of late. They have a great fantasy playoff schedule. Week 15 at home against Vegas, Week 16 at Washington, and Week 17 at Buffalo. That Week 17 game could be a nice shootout. We know Buffalo's defense hasn't been that great. It is in Buffalo, so there could be weather permitting, but either way, it's a great matchup in my opinion. Both of those teams could be playing for home field advantage and whatnot. Buffalo could be playing for a playoff spot at that point, for all we know. So I think that'll be a good competitive game. So Philly offense as a whole, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, Devonta Smith, and A.J. Brown specifically. Dallas Goedert, obviously, if you have them, you're going to play them. But if you do have other options, I would key in on the matchups week to week. Maybe if you have a better option on your bench, you can plug them in. But Dallas Goedert, I'm fine playing as well. But just Philly offense as a whole, looking good rest of the season. And we got one more player that I really like rest of the season, and that's wide receiver Ted McMillan. Or Tetaroa McMillan. We'll give him some respect. Pretty favorable schedule down the stretch for Carolina. 9th quarterback, 9th favorable. Running back, 16th favorable. Wide receiver, 8th favorable. Week 12, they're at San Fran. Week 13, at home against the Rams. Week 15, they go to New Orleans. Week 16, Tampa Bay. And then week 17, at home against Seattle. He's got a 27% target share, which ranks 12th in the NFL at his position. 89 targets, 7th in the NFL. Last 4 weeks, 24 catches, 335 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Gave us 16.9 points, 8.6 points, 11 points, and a big 33-point performance last week. Bryce Young has been playing better. Jalen Coker has come back. He's healthy going forward. Rico Dowdle taking over the running back situation has benefited Carolina. Chuba Hubbard actually looks pretty good. It looks like he's getting back closer to 100% healthy. So they do have 2 good options in the backfield. Just overall, the offense looks better balanced. They actually in a play. They're hunting down a wild card spot. There's a possibility they could get in the playoffs. Rookie wide receivers, we talk about it all the time. Rookie wide receivers tend to break out towards the end of the season. So if you have Ted McMillan, you should feel good about it and plug him in your lineups from here on out. I think he is going to produce solid wide receiver 2 numbers going forward. And that's basically it. That's all the players that I covered for this show. Maybe we'll have some more going forward in future episodes. Tonight, we got the Game Changers 100th episode on the Sports Affiliation. What's up, JC? Thanks for checking in on me, brother. Appreciate all you do for us here, giving me opportunity to be on this stage, talk about football, help people out, get them ready for their fantasy playoffs. But back to the Game Changers 100th episode tonight, 8:30 on the Sports Affiliation YouTube channel. That's Carla. You know her. She's probably our best asset on Sports Affiliation. Greg Kellogg and Wendy Early are going to be the guests. There's going to be some surprises going down. It's going to be a great episode. Absolutely cannot wait to tune into that. It's going to be beautiful. That's basically all I can say right now. So check that out tonight, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. I said you, Wendy. You, Wendy Early, and Greg Kellogg are the guests. Nice. So yeah, you guys hit the like button, hit the subscribe. If you're not subscribed to the Sports Affiliation already, what the hell are you doing? Subscribe. We're doing good stuff. It's going to be great. Rest of the season. Hope I gave you all good advice, all good information today. Hope you guys win your Week 12 matchups. You can catch me next Tuesday night, probably 8 o'clock Eastern time for another Aces Up episode. Until then, hope you guys have a good day, and I'm going to get out of here. Check you all later.